Hey everybody, welcome back. Now this week we're starting a discussion of cloud technology. Now some of you have been asking this question, what is cloud technology? And one of the quizzes that you took last week, there was a question about this, and many of you said, well, I kind of know what it is, or some of you said, I have no idea, but I'm willing to learn. How do I use cloud technology? Well, we'll talk about that, and you'll realize that you use it all the time now, and you may not even realize it. But before we do that, let's take a step back. And I want to talk about something that will kind of lay the groundwork for an understanding of cloud technology and an understanding of internet browsers, which is something that we're going to turn to in probably a couple of weeks. And that is an understanding of the internet itself. So the question is, what is the internet? It's one of these things that is so ubiquitous, it's so common, it is all over the place, that we rarely stop and think, what is it? What is the internet? Well, the internet is pretty basic. It's right there in the word itself. It's interconnected networks. So let's think of it this way. You have a network at your home probably, or at your place of business, or at your church, or at your library, or at the local grocery store. I mean, everyone seems to have a network now. This is where you basically can use this and you can get on the internet, right? Or look at web pages or something like that. The internet is your network and all the millions and millions and millions of networks around the world that are interconnected and allows them to talk to each other. Now, the internet itself is kind of that foundation. This is the structure. This is all the cable. This is all the fiber optics. This is all the Wi-Fi towers and the routing stations that makes up the internet, that allows us to basically correspond and talk to other networks. That's the internet, and it's really an amazing thing. I mean, you think about it, there are actually internet cables that are running down under the Pacific Ocean, under the Atlantic Ocean, all over the world. Literally tens of thousands of miles of cable helps to create what is the internet right now. On top of that, you have all these massive cell towers, or it looks like cell towers or whatever, that also helps to create what we have with the internet. Now, most of what we know about the internet is from our own perspective. This is your Wi-Fi hotspot, or this is your local area network, LAN, that you have at your house. You talked to your cable provider and they gave you a modem, and then you went to Best Buy and you got yourself a router, and there you go, lo and behold, you're surfing the web and you're on YouTube. Well, the internet allows your network to talk to, essentially, YouTube's network and many other ones in between there, that allows you to stream that video of that little kitty cat falling off the dinner table or whatever it might be, right? That's what the internet really is. Now, that's the structure of the internet. On top of that is the World Wide Web. These are all the different kind of websites that we use all the time without even thinking about it, and they sit on this foundation or this structure that is the internet. So the web basically requires the internet and all that cable and all those towers and everything else in order to basically function. And the web itself is made up of web pages. Really now it's in the billions and growing every day. And the vast majority of these are really never visited by very many people. But the big ones you can guess would be things like Google and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and there's some other ones. There's one called Baidu, I think, in China, and some other ones that we probably don't know very much about, but are very, very popular. And as you can guess, the internet being the internet, there's a lot of very, very top websites that shouldn't be discussed in polite company, and you can kind of guess what I mean by that. But these really make up, these kinds of websites make up the bulk of the traffic on the internet, all right? What we're doing right now is requiring an internet setup, all this cable, all this other kind of stuff, and a website that allows you to basically watch what I'm saying right now. So that's the internet, and that's the web. This is one of those things that, again, you have to kind of stop and think about it, because we use it so often, we just take for granted what it actually is. Now, cloud technology. What is cloud technology? Well, cloud technology is something that you're using daily as well. Cloud technology is basically computing and storage that doesn't require your device anymore. Now you think about this, and probably the easiest way would be something like iTunes. It wasn't that long ago that when you went on iTunes and you were going to buy a video, or you were going to buy a song, you bought it for $1.25 or whatever, $1.29, and then you downloaded it onto your hard drive, right? We don't do that anymore. You have it in the iCloud or iTunes Cloud or whatever it may be called, something that's run by Apple, and you don't have to store any of that stuff. And that was great because that stuff for a long time was clogging up people's hard drives, and then you had movies and all sorts of stuff and slowed everything down. You don't need to do that anymore, right? Google Drive is another thing that we often think about when we talk about cloud technology. Google Drive, just by having a Gmail account, you're allowed to store tons of information in Google's Drive that's basically personal to you. Now, what does that mean? Is it out there in the clouds? It's out there in the ether? No, not at all. This just means, cloud technology just means that you're using somebody else's computer to do some of the computing that you normally do. You're using somebody else's computer to store data that previously would have been stored on your own computer. And in a case like Google, they're stored in these giant server farms, probably somewhere out on the West Coast, these things that are the size of multiple football fields and are climate controlled and are protected by armed guards. And this is the cloud. This is where your stuff is being stored, or in the case of, for us in this class right now, Microsoft Office 365, as you're learning about that right now, this is Microsoft's cloud version of Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. These are things that you do not need to download onto your computer. Now, for the sake of this class, you still do download the downloadable version because there are differences between the two. But cloud technology allows you to not have to basically put that software onto your own computer. It's really kind of nice, all right? You don't have to gum up the works on your computer by having multiple programs on there if you don't want to. Now, there are limitations, and we're going to be talking about those limitations in subsequent weeks. So, cloud storage, another great example for you would be Microsoft's version, which is OneDrive. And now you have access to OneDrive if you didn't already have your own account or something previously. And this is where you can store all of your coursework, not only for this class, but for all of your classes on Microsoft's computers. So cloud storage is really just doing all the things we do on a computer, whether it's saving or running programs or what have you, but doing that using other people's computers, other people's servers. This goes for malware and antivirus software as well. You don't need to download all this stuff anymore. McAfee or Avast or one of these other companies that you might use, basically they will connect with your computer and they'll do all the work effectively behind the scenes without you having to download a huge, getting a disk and then downloading all this stuff onto your computer. So that's cloud technology. And I hope you can see now how an understanding of cloud technology first requires an understanding of the World Wide Web, which also requires an understanding of what the internet itself is. So we're going to be talking a lot more about cloud technology. I'll be putting onto Blackboard, as well as with this video, an infographic that hopefully kind of explains cloud technology a little bit more. If you have questions, obviously, let me know, contact me, and maybe I can flesh it out a little bit more for you. But an understanding of this is going to be central to the rest of this class. As we start getting into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, browsers, other things like that, you're going to really want to understand what cloud technology is, because we're going to be using, for instance, in Microsoft Excel, the cloud version of Excel, which is 365, and then the downloadable version. The downloadable version is going to be very different from the cloud version. So it's very important for you to have an understanding of what that stuff is first before we get into anything else. So, as always, if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, let me know, and we'll see how the rest of the week goes. Thanks, folks.